polished marble floors of the Vane Global lobby usually hummed with the symphony of ambition, clicking heels, hushed power calls, the distant whir of elevators ascending to stratospheric dreams. But today the silence was absolute save for the rhythmic swish of Elias' mop. Elias, the night janitor, a man whose presence was as constant and unnoticed as gravity, was meticulously cleaning. He paused, his gaze drifting to the CEO's private elevator, a sleek silver monolith that had just deposited its final forlorn passengers. He had seen countless executives stride through these halls, their faces a mixture of arrogance and aspiration. Today he'd seen them leave with broken spirits, their briefcases feeling like lead weights. Elias knew every corner, every shadow, every stain on these floors, and he knew the deeper, hidden stains within the very fabric of the company. He witnessed the slow erosion of integrity, the quiet acts of cruelty, and the desperate vulnerability of those caught in the crossfire. He alone held the keys to more than just the building. He held the unspoken narratives of its people, especially mine. And he was about to become the unexpected pivot point in a story of corporate downfall and unlikely redemption. The air in the Vane Global boardroom was so thick it felt like breathing through wet wool, not the usual crisp atmosphere of million-dollar decisions. My hands, hidden beneath the grand mahogany table, trembled so violently I had to sit on them. Across from me sat Julian Vane, billionaire tech mogul, and as of 10 minutes ago, the man who had just fired every single person in this room. 40 executives, some who had given 20 years to this company, were now either openly sobbing or staring into space in shell-shocked silence. The audacious cruelty of it was breathtaking. Julian, usually a man of carefully measured words, had delivered the news with an almost surgical precision devoid of any discernible emotion. Effective immediately, he'd stated, his voice a flat line. The executive tier of Vane Global is dissolved. You are all terminated. The collective gasp had been followed by a horrified silence, then the unraveling. I was a junior analyst, not an executive, but I was caught in the blast radius, an accidental witness to a corporate purge. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum against the silence. Security will escort you out, Julian continued, his voice as cold as a morgue slab. Except for one. My breath hitched. He didn't look at his VP of operations, whose face was a mask of pleading disbelief. He didn't look at the CFO, who was now quietly hyperventilating. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, locked onto the back of the room where Elias, the 60-year-old janitor, stood holding a mop bucket. Elias didn't flinch. He just nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible dip of his head like they were two old friends sharing a secret known only to them. It was a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. My heart hammered even harder, a frantic, warning beat. I wasn't an executive, I was a junior analyst who 6 months ago had seen something I shouldn't have. More importantly, Elias had seen me at my absolute lowest, the moment my own life had fractured, the moment a deep, hidden shame had spilled out in a messy, tear-streaked heap on the breakroom floor late one night. I thought Elias was just a silent witness to my ruin. I didn't know then that he was the unlikely key to understanding Julian Vane's motives, and perhaps even to my own salvation. To truly grasp the seismic shift that was unfolding in that boardroom, one must understand the foundation of lies and betrayal that had once been my life. 6 months ago, I was Sarah, married to Marcus, a rising star in Vane Global's legal department. To the outside world, we were the quintessential power couple, effortlessly navigating social circles and corporate ladders. Inside our meticulously curated apartment, however, I was a prisoner to his corrosive temper and insidious psychological games. He meticulously chipped away at my self-worth, systematically convincing me that I was nothing, that without his name and his manufactured status I was merely the help, a charity case he had elevated. The emotional abuse was a slow poison, dulling my senses and convincing me that I deserved the cruel words and isolating silences. I believed him when he said no one else would ever want me, that my ambition was foolish and my past a burden. I wore the mask of the successful corporate wife while inside I was slowly suffocating, a ghost in my own life. One rainy Tuesday, my carefully constructed facade shattered. Marcus had been unusually secretive about a new major project at work, spending late nights hunched over his laptop. Curiosity, or perhaps an instinct for self-preservation, led me to check his computer when he was out. What I found wasn't a minor indiscretion, it was a labyrinth of deceit. Marcus wasn't just cheating, he was systematically embezzling millions from Vane Global itself, using a series of shell companies and, most damningly, my own company login credentials to cover his tracks. He had meticulously set me up to be the fall girl, to take the full blame if the authorities ever came knocking. The documents I held in my trembling hands detailed everything, a chilling testament to his calculated cruelty. My entire world imploded. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, was not only a cheat and an abuser but a criminal who had deliberately designed my downfall. My future, once seemingly secure, now vanished into a black hole of legal woes and public humiliation. I fled our opulent apartment, the very symbol of our toxic life, seeking refuge in the only place I felt I had any semblance of control, the office late at night under the guise of an urgent project. It was 3:00 a.m. when I found myself in the Vane Global break room on the 42nd floor, surrounded by fluorescent lights that hummed like a disapproving chorus. I collapsed onto a plastic chair, clutching the damning documents, the evidence of Marcus's betrayal and my own impending ruin. I cried until my chest ached, until I couldn't breathe, the tears blurring the damning words on the paper. The shame was a physical weight, pressing down on me, the humiliation of being so utterly manipulated and then discarded. I thought I was alone in my despair, hidden by the cloak of night and the vast emptiness of the corporate tower. That's when I heard it, the gentle squeak of a mop bucket and the soft shuffle of worn shoes. Elias hadn't said a word. He didn't ask why I was there, didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. He simply sat down at the table across from me, placed his thermos between us and poured me a lukewarm cup of herbal tea. He just listened. And in that listening, in that quiet, non-judgmental presence, I poured out everything. The abuse, the embezzlement, the profound shame of my naivete. Sometimes, Elias had said in a gravelly voice, his gaze kind but steady, the only way to clean a floor is to strip the wax off entirely. It's painful, but the wood underneath is still strong. I thought he was just a kind old man offering a simple, homespun wisdom. I didn't know he had been Julian Vane's mentor decades ago, when Julian was just a bewildered kid in a foster home, grappling with a harsh world. I didn't know Elias was the only man Julian Vane truly trusted, the silent confidant who had watched over Julian's rise and was now watching over me. Back in the now empty boardroom, the silence was heavy, almost sacred. Only Julian, Elias, and I remained. The air crackled with anticipation, a stark contrast to the earlier despair. "My husband, Marcus, he's downstairs," I stammered, my voice still fragile, expecting Julian to dismiss me, to have me escorted out with the rest. "He thinks he's getting promoted today." Julian leaned against the edge of the mahogany table, his posture relaxed yet commanding. "Marcus is currently being detained in the lobby by the SEC, he stated, his voice devoid of triumph, merely stating a fact. "Elias told me what you showed him that night. We've spent the last 6 months tracing the digital breadcrumbs Marcus left behind. He thought he was incredibly clever, meticulously covering his tracks." A ghost of a smile, cold and grim, touched Julian's lips. He didn't realize that the man who cleans the floors sees every discarded draft, every panicked late-night session, every detail that someone trying to hide something might overlook. Elias' cleaning was far more thorough than Marcus could ever have imagined. The revelation struck me with the force of a physical blow. Elias hadn't just been a kind listener, he had been my unwitting advocate, my silent guardian. Julian walked toward me, the heavy, cream-colored envelope in his hand. My breath hitched. If I took it, my life would change forever. If I didn't, I'd be walking out into the rain with nothing but my secrets and the lingering shame. "This board was corrupt," Julian declared, his voice firm, sweeping away the ghosts of the departed executives. "They knew what Marcus was doing. Some were even taking a cut, complicit in the embezzlement and the abuse of power. They thought I was too busy looking at the stars, too focused on the next big innovation, to see what was happening in the basement, in the dark corners of my own company. They forgot that Elias sees everything, from the smallest dust bunny to the largest deception." He held the envelope out. "I'm rebuilding this company from the ground up," Julian said, his eyes piercing mine with a newfound respect. "I need people who know the value of the truth because they've survived the lies. Elias is staying on, not as a janitor but as my senior advisor," my eyes and ears on the ground. "And you," he said, pushing the envelope gently into my trembling hand, "I want you to head the new internal audit department. You'll have the unprecedented power to scrutinize every transaction, every decision, and to fire anyone who even thinks about crossing the line. You will ensure the floors stay clean, Sarah." I stood up, the weight of the last 6 months, years even, lifting off my shoulders like a suffocating shroud. I looked at Elias, who gave me a small, knowing wink, a silent acknowledgement of our shared understanding, of the unlikely alliance that had formed in the crucible of corporate deceit. I walked out of that boardroom, past the ghostly echoes of the executives who had mocked and dismissed me, past the very security guards who were now escorting my disgraced husband Marcus out of the building in handcuffs. Marcus caught my eye as he was led past, his face a mask of primal rage and utter confusion. "You did this," he screamed, his voice raw and desperate. "You're nothing, you're just—" I cut him off, my voice steady, strong, and unwavering for the first time in years. "I'm the person who knows the truth, Marcus," I said, meeting his gaze with unshakable resolve. "And the truth is, the floors are finally clean." Julian Vane hadn't just saved my career that day. He had given me the tools to build a life where I would never again have to hide in the shadows, never again fear the truth. Together with Elias, who now sat in an office with a view, advising Julian with his quiet wisdom, we rebuilt Vane Global into a bastion of integrity and transparency. The company, once a den of vipers, transformed into a place where honesty was valued above all else, where meritocracy wasn't just a buzzword but a lived reality. The moral of our story isn't just about revenge, though justice was certainly served. It's about the profound power of empathy, the quiet wisdom found in unexpected places, and the courage it takes to speak truth to power. It teaches us that sometimes, the person with the mop, the one overlooked and underestimated, has the clearest vision of the mess and the purest heart to help clean it up. True leadership, Julian learned, isn't just about towering intellect or ruthless ambition. It's about discerning character, fostering trust, and recognizing that integrity, like a well-polished floor, forms the strongest foundation for any empire.